Is it possible for an employer not to accept my resignation? For a little backstory, I was recruited for this job. At first I didn't accept the terms for hire because it paid less than I was making on unemployment. And it was only part-time. I was told this would lead to full-time employment and possibly promotion after a year, which is the terms I agreed to. Instead, they started asking me to come in on my days off, often when I already had plans and always at the last minute, as well as pressuring me to pitch in money for various outside events that I wasn't even a part of. I was made to feel guilty and not a team player if I didn't agree to this. After about a year and a half of this, and having been denied a transfer on the grounds of why would I want to lose a perfectly good employee to another branch, I decided to quit. I was surprised when the manager started literally yelling at me, demanding to know why I would want to leave and how ungrateful I was being for even suggesting it. She wouldn't even let me explain myself. So I finally said I was living for my health and it was a private matter, which seemed to be the only explanation she would accept. The next morning, before my shift would have started, I received a letter that came straight to the door by courier. It said they had given it some thought and had decided they would accept my resignation. Now, I've never experienced anything like this before, but from the sounds of it, if they hadn't accepted it, they would have just expected me to keep showing up? It makes no sense to me. So I was just wondering if something similar has happened to anyone else? X200B. X200B. No, they can't just say no, you can't quit. That's a movie thing, not reality. Boy, are they in for a surprise when you're not there one day. I mean, they can say you can't quit, but this isn't slavery technically. They can call it job abandonment and claim that you just left. Keep notes and send it registered mail or from your private email. You have the right to resign. You gave notice that you were resigning. This just shows how petty they are by saying they have accepted your resignation. Bottom line is your manager is a bully. If possible, I would find a way to sign your separation papers on your next to last day. Stay a little later and clean off your desk. Put any keys, employee ID, etc. in an envelope and slide under your manager's office door. Take a sick day your last day and have it noted with HR. You do not need to be berated anymore, especially what is supposed to be your last day. I hope you find another job where everyone treats each other with respect. At-will employment works both ways. You are free to quit anytime in almost every state. Resignations letters aren't a request. They are a notification. The only way they can accept them is in the terms of accepting that someone has died. It's nothing you can change. But there are the stages of grief to go through. Are you in America and not bound by some ridiculous contract? If that's the case, then a company cannot accept your resignation all they want. Doesn't change the fact that you don't want to work for them any longer and are free to go about finding other work you want. They can pound sand and cry if they don't like you resigning. They sent that letter for one reason only, to prove you voluntarily quit. And by doing so, are ineligible for unemployment. No other reason. That right there is a power ego trip. They can't force you to work. Your first mistake was believing them. Your second mistake was not quitting sooner. The correct response to someone telling you that you cannot quit a job is easy. Fuck you as you exit. They're trying to make it seem like they have all the power. They have none on reality. Could even be a setup for a last minute actually. You can't quit and they're busy trying to prime you to accept that. It's bullshit. They can't deny your resignation. You're telling them that you're not gonna be showing up anymore. Not asking. They don't have accept it, but you don't have to go to work there either. I suppose they could keep paying you after you leave, if they insist. They can totally not accept your resignation. They can totally reject any consideration of you leaving them. They can definitely tell you that you cannot leave. They can certainly complain and yell and scream and wail and moan and whinge. None of it matters because you leave whenever you feel like leaving and there's nothing they can legally do about it. The "we accept your resignation" letter is to prevent you from collecting unemployment. If you need to file for unemployment, make sure to tell them about the toxic work environment, which is why you were forced to resign. Explain you tried to transfer and were denied. Explain you tried to quit and were denied and verbally abused. And if you haven't already, report that shit to HR via email so you have a record. Make sure you specifically note toxic work environment as your reason for leaving in your email. I was told this would lead to full-time employment and possibly promotion after a year. Which is the terms I agreed to. I wouldn't call those terms. If it's not in the employment contract, it's not really a term. No, this isn't slavery, just a pathetic passive-aggressive last attempt at asserting dominance. I've never heard of such a thing. I do have to say one thing, though. They pressured to actually pay to work there. They wanted you to financially pitch in for work-related events. Why would you do that? Sure, you can stop working and they can continue to pay you. That is allowed. I always thought if a job didn't accept your resignation, it just kept you from being able to us. Then as a reference. I mean, they cannot accept it all they want. Can't force you to go into work though. Unless you have a specific contract stating you need to give X notice and or pay things back. Notice is a courtesy. Companies will frequently ask you to leave once you give it. You gave notice as a courtesy. If they continue to be immature and petty, and you can afford it, feel free next time to say, I gave a courtesy notice. If you can't in kind act courteous, I guess this is my last day. Where do I turn in my laptop? Etc. And walk out. Seriously. It's this easy. Also, never tell anyone where you're going. Especially in this case. They are just covering their ass. Documenting that you resigned. And that they did not fire you. Therefore you can be denied unemployment. The employer does not need to approve your resignation itself. Yes, they cannot accept your resignation. Too bad for them that their acceptance has no bearing on anything. They can't decide that you can't resign. You're an employee, not a slave. My advice to anyone who has an employer saying they can't leave when they put in their notice? Just leave. What are they gonna do? Fire you? I was made to feel guilty and not a team player if I didn't agree to this. Let this be your lesson to kill off that part of yourself going forward. I couldn't be guilted into any of those things now. It said they had given it some thought and had decided they would accept my resignation. I would respond that they didn't have the option of deciding to accept it and never return again, especially if I had shifts left. I wouldn't care about burning bridges either. I'd just make up the reference if I needed it. You don't need anyone to accept your resignation. If you're leaving or have already accepted a new job, you just simply stop showing up on X day that you told them would be your last day. What are they going to do? They can't call the police on you for not showing up. I was told this would lead to full-time employment and possibly promotion after a year. Which is the terms I agreed to. Anytime any job says vague things like this, the proper response is, put it on paper or in an official email. 9 times out of 10 they won't.